If you want to stay up to date with all current hip-hop events and releases, make sure to subscribe and become part of this community. Oh, and also, go cop that fresh merch and listen to my new songs in the description. 2022 was actually a pretty good year for hip-hop, but kind of looking back at it now towards the end of the year, I can give you a list of my top 10 albums in hip-hop of 2022. So let's start. I'm going to do this in order. I'm going to start with number 10 and we're going to work our way up to number 1. So that's how we're going to do it. And right now we'll start with number 10. My 10th best album of this year, even though it's at place 10, obviously it's my top 10, so it's better than 99% of the stuff that dropped. I put Future's I Never Liked You. Now, hear me out on this. I'm not the biggest Future fan. I think Future has served hip-hop in ways that has reinvented genres, especially trap has influenced a lot of young artists coming up. When you hear a lot of these new younger artists talk about what their main influences were, they were listening to Future and Thugger. And so Future's played an incredibly crucial role in developing hip-hop to the sound and to the point that it's at today. And I think I Never Liked You is probably his best work to date. A lot of the older Future stuff was more like playlists, more like he's one of those artists that just records a bunch of songs and puts the best on an album. It's never like very cohesive. I thought I Never Liked You did a better job at that, even though it's still a Future record. And some of the songs on there, you can just tell he recorded them and he was like, either it's going to be a hit or a miss, but we're just going to see. But it still gave us stuff like, I mean, probably the most successful is Wait For You, but I don't like that track. But also Puffin' on Zooties, I like that track quite a lot too. So Future's I Never Liked You, probably his best work to date. And let's see where he takes it from here. But that was place number 10. At number 9, and this is the reason why I had to redo this video, is actually Absol with Herbert that just dropped. And I was live with y'all and I told y'all that I had to redo this list because Absol just dropped an incredibly insane album. Herbert is really good. It would have probably been a lot higher up on this list if it didn't drop right at the end of the year, and I would have a couple of more months to even, live with it and process it. If you haven't yet, make sure to go check out Herbert by Absol. But this is, you got to go in it with kind of like the view of, I'm going to listen to what he's saying. It's not going to be an album that is very like cinematic with a lot of different sounds, even though he does, experiment a little bit around with stuff, but this is like really heavy when it comes to the substance of the matter that he's talking about. It reminded me a lot of Kendrick's album, Mr. Morale. We're going to get to that. Spoiler alert. In that it kind of feels like he's processing so much on this album, and the subject matters range from very personal to kind of him giving a general overview and even advice to you as a listener. And that's why I think that this album is definitely one of the best this year, and I'm so happy that Absol is finally back. And a lot of y'all need to listen more to Absol, and it shows. So number 9, Absol, Herbert. Number 8 on this list is Denzel Curry with Melt My Eyes, See Your Future. A lot of people didn't like this record when it originally came out, and also looking at the commercial performance of this, a lot of his older stuff did better. Like Ultimate was probably one of most successful commercial albums. Taboo was yet another one. Zoo also did its thing, and Melt My Eyes was, and he said this himself, his best work to date, and I truly believe that as well. He definitely goes out of his comfort zone a lot more on this record than he has before. After Taboo, he's kind of transitioned from the definition of a SoundCloud rapper to now being a mainstream artist. 2 months ago, I dropped a longer documentary on this, or at least a more effort put into documentary on this that was part of a bigger YouTuber project. So if you haven't yet, make sure to go check out that documentary that kind of, talks about Denzel Curry's rise as a SoundCloud rapper, then moving into the mainstream with Taboo. So very great. I would really recommend y'all go watch that. I put a lot of time and effort into this. But Melt My Eyes, See Your Future was probably the last destination on this journey that I described in that little documentary. And that's why I think it is so important to him. And also, just on an objective standpoint, a lot of the sounds, a lot of the flows and efforts he put into the songs are some of the best we've seen in hip-hop this year. And I think that this list would be incomplete without putting Denzel on here, because when I think back at this, of this year, that was definitely one of the best records this year. So number 8 on this list is Denzel Curry, Melt My Eyes, See Your Future. Place number 7, one of my personal favorites, Vince Staples, Ramona Park, Broke My Heart. I feel like after I listened to this, I remember it was like an April morning, and I was listening to this, taking a walk, and that stuff is good for your soul. Not gonna lie. When you listen to that, he takes you through so many emotions, and Vince Staples is such an interesting character in hip-hop to me because he just kind of comes out of nowhere, drops an incredible project, and it's kind of gone from the limelight, from the mainstream limelight for a very long time. I mean, this dude is so real, he even got a little Baby feature for free. That is not something that Baby usually does. A lot of his older stuff has been very abstract, like the Big Fish theory, but this thing is more like down to earth, describing his, upcoming in, obviously, Ramona Park, and it broke his heart. And I think that this album is beautiful when it comes to the soundscape that it produces, when it comes to his unique flows. Vince in himself is not like a great rapper, like a great technical rapper, but he always finds ways to make songs so interesting and so intriguing. So definitely give this a listen if it was something that kind of flew below your radar this year. Place number 7 on this list, Ramona Park, broke my heart. Vince Staples, very great project. I hope this is very dear to my heart. Number 6, also just recently dropped, and I was very positively surprised by this one, and that is Metro Boomin, Heroes and Villains. Now, I was very hesitant putting this album on this list because obviously this is not like from one artist, it is Metro Boomin, but I think that this album is so great that I had to put it on this list, and obviously it's a hip-hop album. Metro Boomin delivers amazing instrumentals again. We were all having worries that it was not going to be as good as Not All Heroes Wear Capes, but I think so far this is even better, even if a lot of people don't recognize it so far. From the way he uses the features to how the instrumentals and songs would still be great even if they had no features on it. This thing is amazing, and it's going to be so exciting to see what Metro Boomin can still do in the future, and he's opening so many doors for producers that want to put together an album like this. We've seen, for example, Wheezy wanted an album like this, Pierre Bourne also wanted to do something like this, so producers are definitely taking notes on how Metro is moving right now, and it's definitely something that we gotta respect him for. So Heroes and Villains, Metro Boomin's amazing project from just earlier this month, like 2 weeks ago, it dropped at number 6 on this list. Now we getting into the top 5, and it's going to be very interesting to see how I had ordered these. Now obviously I think as like hip-hop listeners and hip-hop fans that are just following the releases, we can kind of agree on like a common top 10, even though some people like certain stuff more than others. But all in all, we can say that certain albums were like generally, objectively very important this year, and it's just a matter of which one we like more. And at number 5, and this has to be on every list, if you see someone out there that doesn't put this album in their top 10 at least, then they don't know what they're talking about. But JID, The Forever Story. This album also, Dreamville dropped that, Gangsta Grillz tape earlier this year, and then we were all like, okay, Cole is doing an amazing job with putting together this roster on Dreamville. And then Ari Lennox drops an amazing album, and then we got the JID album, and it just completely blew everybody away. This album is so freaking good. From it, keeping every track interesting on that track list, to using features so very well, to displaying that he has so much more yet to grow in his career, that he can step out of his comfort zone, that he can make certain types of tracks that kind of you're like, okay, he's actually a really good lyricist. I want to listen to this guy even more, especially with tracks like the now added Outro 2007, 2008, correct me if I'm wrong, where he's just like storytelling for 6-7 minutes straight. But then other tracks that probably the more commercially successful ones like Surround Sound or Dance Now with Kenny Mason, 21 Savage on Surround Sound was also completely insane. They still do well commercially, and he was still like, killing the numbers. So JID on here can't be missing from this list. The Forever Story was so great, and such a great successor, such a great sequel to the Never Story that dropped when 2017, 2018, something like that. The Forever Story on place number 5 on this list. Number 4, definitely one of the best albums this year. I felt so bad not putting it in the top 3, but it's Pusha T's It's Almost Dry. Now, I think Billboard just named this their best hip-hop album of this year, and that is for a reason. Pusha has been consistent with putting out quality music over the past decade, and has only further solidified his status and his place in hip-hop with this record. This thing obviously also taken a lot of influence from Kanye on the production. Also, Kanye has 1 or 2 features on there, one with the rock and roll with Kid Cudi in there, amazing track. But Pusha further continues to drop bars, and bars that are like at the top tier elite level in hip hop, and he is not letting down. He's not letting go of this. He has like the game in chokehold right now, and he's not letting go for the past, at least ever since Daytona dropped. So this thing, definitely, if you haven't yet, make sure to go check out Pusha's album. It didn't like do that well commercially, but it's one of those core hip hop albums that you gotta really respect. At number 3, and that is where I would maybe change number 3 and 4, so put Pusha in the top 3 and put this album back down, but I chose to go with this way, is Nas with King's Disease 3. This also only dropped like a month ago, but this thing is like the three-peat. You know, he started in 2020 with King's Disease 1. We got King's Disease 2 last year, which I thought was maybe even better. You know, if I did a top album list last year, that thing would probably been like number 2 or 1. I don't know. But Nas is just, bro, this dude, you know, having a so successful career early on in his career and then coming back, and with Hit Boy being this unstoppable duo, just carrying hip hop every year that they drop, is insane. From the matter, you know, subject matter he's talking about, to the beat selection, which of course Hit Boy is doing an incredible job on, to Nas displaying still his talent to this day, the way that he can switch up flows, the way that he can tell stories, the way that he can make stuff sound interesting, it's just out of this world. So Nas, King's Disease 3, top 3 on this list. Now we're getting into the top 2, and a lot of people might disagree with my number 2, and that's where y'all can go off in the comments and be like, how could you put this on there but then put like the fucking Denzel Curry album, you know, later on the list. But number 2 for me is Joey Badass 2000. Now, I was actually really hyped for this because 1999 was obviously a very legendary tape for Joey Badass, and I remember listening to that growing up, and I was very excited to hear what 2000 had to bring. It did worse than I thought commercially, but at the time even, people were saying that this was one of the best albums this year, and that still holds true at the end of the year, and that just shows true greatness. Joey goes through a whole lot on this album, you know, kind of being in his reflective stage of his career. He's reflecting on a lot of stuff that maybe he was kind of just riding with earlier on, and that's what makes this so special. It feels like somebody that is, you know, kind of made it, but now they want to take a step back and do all the things that they ever wanted to do, and he's giving you game on this album like nobody else does. And that's why I think that 2000 by Joey Badass is a dope record and is my number 2 for this year. And at number 1, who could have guessed? Who could have guessed? What album is missing? Kendrick Lamar, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, the biggest release this year. I remember this dropped while I was on vacation in Portugal, in Lisbon, and I listened to this one early morning, taking a walk, like walking these crazy paths over the city, and I was listening to this album while like having the greatest view of the whole city, and I posted a picture back when that happened, so I don't know, real ones among y'all remember that, but this album, y'all got it. You have to listen to this. I mean, I can't tell you that you got to listen to this. You've listened to this. This was the biggest album of 2022 when it came to hip hop, aside from maybe the Drake stuff, but that's obviously not on this list. Probably the most personal, most vulnerable Kendrick album we've gotten ever. It shows yet another step in his evolution as an artist, as a person. I look up to Kendrick as like more of an idol now and more of a role model than I did before, just because he addresses so many so personal subject matters on this record that it just feels so close to my heart, and I'm still listening to this day. And I was at the show, I was at the concert, the tour for this thing, so maybe that's also a reason, and that was a dope show. So Kendrick Lamar, Mr. Morale, and the Big Steppers, number 1. I want to add a couple of honorable mentions on here because I don't want to leave anyone that dropped an amazing album out of here, but those are my top 10, and let's just go over some honorable mentions. First of all, in March, Lil Durk dropped his project 7220. That was, I mean, it was dope, it was great, but just to me, it didn't make the cut into the top 10. The same goes for the next album, Lil Baby, It's Only Me. Y'all know I'm a big Baby fan, but It's Only Me is just not timeless enough to make it into the top 10, but still, like 7220, an honorable mention on here. Also, I want to mention the King Von posthumous release, What It Means to Be King. I was listening to this on repeat back when it dropped on March 4th, but it didn't make the cut, as I said with the other 2 ones, even though I think this record is better than Baby's and Durkio's. Now, hot take, but don't at me. I also gotta mention Drake and 21 Savage with Her Loss. While it obviously didn't make the top 10 for me, it was still a good project and better than I expected, and I really liked that. The same goes for Freddie Gibbs' album Soul Separately. I wanted to put this on there because I feel like this dude definitely needs more recognition in the game, and the album is amazing. Y'all gotta listen to it if you haven't yet, but it just didn't make the cut for the top 10, but this would have probably been spot number 11. You know, the other ones that I mentioned are like, nah, they don't even deserve to be in the top like 10, but this one was a close call. This one might have exchanged 1 or 2 records on the top 10 list. So that's my top 10 for 2022. Best hip-hop albums. Let me know what y'all think. What was your list this year? Y'all top 10 albums this year, plus honorable mentions. I really want to go through everybody's lists in the comments. Leave it down below. I'm going to reply to every single comment down there, and I want to know what albums did I miss out on that y'all say are in y'all's top 10. That was probably the stuff that I'm looking forward to the most. So all of your lists, all of your thoughts on mine, what you agree with, what you disagree with, all of that, please let me know in the comments down below. If you watched this video to the end and liked it, and you want to stay up to date with all current hip-hop events and releases, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, hit that like button, and go follow my social media, and most importantly, join my Discord in the description. Until the next one, you'll have an incredible day, and y'all take care.